Special edition of Box News. Hello, viewers of Devoted. This is Warm Wizard with Box News here, and I have a very special interview today before this update goes live. Here I have with me Bonkill, and he's going to go over this new update that's going to roll out very soon. Thank you for being here, Bonkill. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, what is crop control, and how does it change the game, would you say?
So crop control is a new plugin that we're implementing. It's essentially hidden for crops. It lets us control new rare drops that will drop from farming and chopping down trees. And it also allows us to enforce that those drops only occur from natural hand-broken crop events. So there's no automation, there's no giant, massive, leggy farms that you can make with water or with anything else, pistons. It all has to be done by hand to actually get the good stuff.
What is, like, the purpose of crop control, though? Like, what types of items would it drop and help in, like, everyday life?
So the big issue that we had is we initially designed the tech tree to revolve around mining and then also mob drops. What ended up happening, though, is we had to control how many mobs are actually on the map to make sure that there wasn't too much lag, because if you have too many mobs, it gets incredibly laggy because the server has to keep track of them and move them and have AI for each and every one of them. So we slowly phased out mobs from our game balance, and by adding this new plugin, we're able to add in sort of a new route to explore, a new thing to grind, so to speak. So that's kind of the underlying reason why we added it, because people were unable to get the Pickaxe Factory created with the old mob drops. So now we added crop control so people can make farms and actually progress down the tech tree, which is really what this update is about. It's about allowing people to actually progress down the tech tree.
Well, like, let's say I'm farming and, like, I don't know, like, let's say wheat or something like that. What types of items could drop that would help me advance further into the tech tree?
So there's 7 new drops. So for wheat particularly, there are 3 different drops you can get, 3 levels of rarity. You can get basically the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 3 is, the rarest. Same sort of thing as the tiered ores in hidden ore. We just replicated the same sort of structure and put it behind 7 different crop types.
Okay.
Oh shit.
So let's go. We could keep moving on. What other things have changed for, like, attacking vaults? Because I remember seeing that mentioned in your post about crop control is somehow this will help with, like, assaulting vaults.
Correct. So this is still pretty similar to the old Pickaxe Factory, but no one ever actually created one, so it never really created an issue in the game balance. But we've implemented pickaxes in the Pickaxe Factory, which have a higher efficiency than efficiency 5. So this allows you to break through reinforced obsidian much quicker. That being said, it is extremely expensive, and the pickaxes that you get from the factory only have 50 durability. So they can only really be used for breaking citadel blocks, and you should probably switch back to an efficiency 5 once you get down to the last couple percentage points.
Well, how do you see this, like, changing the game for, like, trying to break into vaults, especially with these picks? Do you think it'll be faster to get into vaults if used correctly?
Correct. Yes. If you have people using an efficiency 6 pick instead of an efficiency 5, the amount of time it would take to break through obsidian goes down very quickly. So it's a way that we can introduce higher level citadel reinforcements, especially more in the future, and still keep it relatively balanced, because we can just increase higher efficiency picks to go along with the higher citadel reinforcements.
What's up with the new Bastions? Like, how will that affect current Bastions that have been set up?
So the Bastions that have been set up are essentially only city bastions and only claim bastions. Those are not changing. We're adding new bastions in though because there were complaints about basically how difficult it was to get to the final vault factory and get the final vault bastions. So we've added a series of sort of in-between bastions that aren't really that powerful, but they can still be used in vaults, which means after the update, basically day one, people are going to have bastion vaults, I'm assuming. They might not be very strong still, but they'll at least be a proper bastion vault.
Like, for the new bastions, will they be able to, like, what's the difference between those compared to the city bastions?
So the city bastion doesn't really block ender pearls or elytras, if I recall correctly. We're putting another post up today that has some more information about the new bastions and their configuration. But if you use a city bastion in a vault, it basically just stops people from placing blocks, but it doesn't really stop people from maneuvering in and out, right? So right now, with a ringed vault with the city bastion in it, you can just pearl into the middle of the vault and start breaking the vault. You don't have to fight through the rings. With bastion vaults, you need to have that ender pearl blocking enabled, which all the vault bastions block ender pearls and block elytras. Which, if you know anything about ring vaults, like the whole goal is to make them fight through the rings.
Yes.
So vault bastions will enable that.
All right. I also saw that you'll be having some new materials being added into the server. What is, like, what you call the most unique material that you're adding?
So each of the crops is going to have 3 different lord items that will drop from it. And then we're also allowing people to dig dirt-like blocks and also blocks on the surface of the map to get new materials as well. I don't think any of them are sort of ultimately unique, but the interesting thing that's going to happen because of it, especially with realistic biomes, is how certain of the new lord items are going to become more valuable, sort of like how titanium and the emerald and diamond hidden or lord drops are, because they're just so rare. I think we're going to see the same sort of situation arise, and it will be interesting to see how the economy reacts to a bunch of these new tiered lord items. The other important thing to note too is in the Pickaxe Factory, there are unique pickaxes that you can make, which will allow you to find specific lord hidden ore drops. So you can create, let's say, a mercury pickaxe, which will have a higher percentage chance of finding mercury.
Wow, yeah, I agree. I think that will change the economy a little bit here. What other changes are being added to this update that we haven't talked about yet?
It's a lot of things. Probably the biggest thing that we haven't discussed yet is that we are removing the restriction on diamond and emerald reinforced glass, since people have just been using sea lanterns anyway. I took a closer look at sort of the balance behind it and whether it was actually a detriment to the server or not. And at this stage in the server, I don't think it's a huge issue. We might have to revisit that decision in the future, but for now, we're allowing people to use emerald and diamond to reinforce glass, sort of as an in-between stage before they get the actual vault reinforcement materials.
I'm just curious because I know I'm not very familiar about this, and I bet there are some viewers also. What were like the limitations before the update? Could you not reinforce glass with diamond or emerald?
Correct. So the initial balance that we made with the Citadel config was that you were not able to reinforce glass and certain other glass-like blocks because they're actually relatively hard to break, especially if they're Citadel reinforced. With glass, the biggest issue, though, is that there's no tool that you can actually use to break it. So if you use an efficiency 5 tool on glass, it won't actually apply because efficiency requires that you're using the correct tool to break the block.
Makes sense.
So even though it's very easy to break a single glass block if you reinforce it 2,000 times, and you don't have efficiency 5, comparatively, it's actually pretty strong.
How do you see this update itself? Because this sounds like it's a pretty decent sized update. How do you see it like changing the server for the future?
I think it's going to bring back a lot of interest, and it will probably ignite more wars, weirdly enough. I think people have been kind of patiently waiting for us to change the balance so that they can actually create proper vaults. But once you fight from a Bastion vault, you really don't want to go back to trying to protect sort of the original Citadel 1.0 type of vaults that don't have bastions or rings or anything like that. So I think it's going to bring back a lot of the power players who are going to want to grind out sort of the materials, especially the pickaxe, the new pickaxes. And the other side of it too is it's going to give people two more interesting routes to take. Right now, there's not a whole lot to do in the end tech tree and in the end game. This update essentially solves that issue. There's going to be people who are going to continue to try and grind to get to the end of both of the factories, probably for months. It's a very, very long tech tree.
Do you see any future clay wars coming out of this because of the whole adding of 20 clay for blow crops?
So Dan did some stats on how many blocks are totally in the world. We actually initially had clay as one of the blocks that we were going to use for drops, for digging drops, but we decided to remove it, especially since people are going to be going crazy for it to make their fields better.
All right, so do you see any type of conflict coming out of that, though?
I think I will be hated by all the desert purists as they see all the other biomes get affected by this update as well. But the map is pretty big. And again, people always say that, we're going to run out of glass. People are going to dig up all the deserts, but it hasn't happened yet. If we ever get to that situation where it does occur, where the entire map has been picked clean, we can just expand the map. It's not that big of a deal.
Fair enough. All right, one last question before let you go back to testing. Anything you wanted to add, like for this update, but you didn't have enough time or something, but you'll add into the future? Sneak peek.
I think one of the biggest things is the fact that we created this Pickaxe Factory that allows people to make pickaxes that will benefit their hidden ore drops. I think it kind of opens up the door to create a new factory in the future that will also do the same thing to make specific tools that are better at harvesting certain crops or chopping down certain trees. I think that's something that we can definitely look into in the future.
Ooh, well, I'm definitely excited for not just this update to drop, but see where the server heads. Thank you for coming on and answering some of these questions. And everybody, this update rolls out at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it rolls out 1 p.m. for Pacific Standard Time. Thank you again, Bonkill.
No problem. Bye, crates.
Will do. All right, and I will see all of you in the next one.